This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
Take us to kickoff.
Welcome into college football student section. This is the football betting hour. Joe Lisi alongside myself. I'm Drew Martin. Guys, we're going to be hitting on about 5 or 6 college football games and then really hit the chat box to any questions you have for Joe or myself. But without further ado, Mr. Joe Lisi, follow him on Twitter at @GoForThe2. How's it going today, Joe?
Looking forward to a great weekend of college football, Drew. We saw some upsets Sunday and Monday night. I think week number 2 will have us in store for a great weekend of college football.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did pretty well week 1, huh?
Yeah, I got started off a little bit slow, but Syracuse was a winner on Friday night. Followed that up with West Virginia and Iowa on Saturday. Lost Louisville, but bounced back in a big way with LSU and Virginia Tech on Sunday and Monday night. So feeling good about week number 2 as we head into the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, welcome into the show. If you're liking the content, college football betting, please give us a thumbs up, the like button. Joe, we got a pretty sleeper game, Friday night action in the state of Texas, TCU SMU. Not very far of a trip for TCU. I guess the Battle of Fort Worth in Dallas. Looks like laying 23 now, been bought up almost a full touchdown on TCU, kind of fading SMU here, at least the market is. 58.5 the total, some weather related issues in this game possibly. Any opinion on TCU SMU?
I like SMU here. I mean, they lost this ball game 56-36 last year. You look at their quarterback, Ben Hicks, he only completed 50% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception last week. But it comes down to the consistency of TCU quarterback Sean Robinson for me, Drew, when you look at his performance last week. I mean, yeah, he stepped up, completed 70% of his passes, 3 touchdowns. But can that hold true in a shootout with Ben Hicks? I'm not so sure. I like Ben Hicks as a quarterback. The way you have to attack TCU is over the top of their secondary. They gave up 461 total yards. And let's keep in mind, TCU does have Ohio State on deck. So I like SMU with the points here.
Interesting. Going against this market move. What about the whole Sonny Dykes and being able to coach up defense in the past? It just hasn't been there. And TCU kind of coming in and blowing their doors off. Could you see that happening?
Yeah, that could happen again. But the one thing that Sonny Dykes does do is he coaches up the offensive side of the ball. This can be a shootout. I mean, it's an in-state game. So I expect SMU to bounce back in a big way. They did not step up against North Texas last week. So I think it'll be a close ball game in the beginning. In the end, TCU wins. But I do like SMU with the 23.5 this coming Saturday.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make here because at first I was like in, TCU big time, but then since this market move, it's up over 3 touchdowns. I'm kind of with you. This might be a little bit too much. You get a home dog catching almost 3 touchdowns and a field goal. That back door could be open too because that SMU offense, like you said, with Sonny Dykes, they could punch in a late score for the cover, right, Joe?
Yeah, they can. I mean, the one thing I think you have to keep in mind, it's Big 12 football. We know even though TCU has stepped up on the defensive side of the ball in recent years, this is still a Big 12 defense. And the way you have to attack them is up tempo. That's what SMU is going to do. We'll see. I think they score first, put the pressure on Sean Robinson. And if they fall behind, I think that could be an issue for TCU, especially with Ohio State on deck.
All right, guys, we got a couple games here we're going to get out. Big man on campus might be joining us in a bit, having some internet issues up in the Northeast. But we got 365, 366, Clemson, Texas A&M here, Joe. This is a big one. Outside of maybe Columbia, South Carolina, this could be the biggest game on the slate, maybe all due respect to Stanford and USC. But Clemson, some people think is the most talented team in the nation. Going into the home of the 12th man and laying doubles here. It's a tough task to do. 12.5 at Heritage right now, looking at SBR odds. How would you look to bet Clemson and Texas A&M, Joe?
I like Clemson here. The one thing about Clemson is that their road record, 20-3 over the last 3 years on the road or on a neutral field site. That's an 868 winning percentage. That's the one thing Dabo Sweeney and the crew do better than anybody. They step up against the competition. They'll be ready in this ballgame. The one thing that Texas A&M is going to have to do, they're going to have to attack Clemson's defensive secondary that last year only allowed 167 passing yards per game and only allowed 29% on third down conversions. I don't have a lot of, I want to say, faith in Kellen Mond possibly striking the upset at home. It'll be an electric atmosphere. I expect Texas A&M to be in this game, but in the end, I think the mobility of Kelly Bryant and that defensive front seven dominates late in that ball game. I'm calling for a 17-point Clemson victory on the road in College Station.
Okay, so you like a cover, not necessarily comfortable, but you like them to cover this number. And what about the Clemson quarterback kind of scenario they have going? You think Kelly Bryant sees all the snaps, or Trevor Lawrence gets in a little bit? What do you see happening?
Well, the way you have to beat Texas A&M is you have to attack their secondary as well. They allowed well over 230 passing yards per game last year, and last week they allowed over 200 passing yards in the dominating home win. So again, if Kelly Bryant, who completed 62% of his passes last week, Trevor Lawrence, he completed 67% and threw 3 touchdowns. Again, if Kelly Bryant doesn't attack that defense early on, you might see Trevor Lawrence step in. But to me, it is the mobility of Kelly Bryant that is the difference. I think he starts fast. He's a battle-tested quarterback, and I think his mobility is the difference in this ballgame.
Okay. Joe, we're having a little issues on YouTube, at least for myself signing in. So I think I'm restarting it here so we can get some guys' questions in. But we have a couple more games to run down, and then we'll hit on the chat box. We got 357, 358, Ball State, Notre Dame. I'm not a geography whiz, but I believe this is an in-state rival. 62.5 the total, 34.5 Notre Dame laying in South Bend. You have any opinion on this one?
I would take Notre Dame here. They really impressed me with the victory over Michigan last week. They held Michigan's offense to 58 rushing yards on the ground. I like Riley Neal as Ball State's quarterback. He passed for 259 yards last week in the win. But again, I still think Notre Dame's physicality in running the football and making Ball State one-dimensional, and more importantly, they can sniff a possible college football playoff appearance after that dominating home win over Michigan. I would lay the 34.5, 35 with Notre Dame. They dominated Miami O last year at home and covered that number. They step up against lesser competition.
Yeah, they really do. Brian Kelly, you got to tip your cap when it comes to kind of dominating lesser competition. You said it there. I got it all set up on YouTube right now. We got Tomar in here. James, what's up, guys? He's asking, James Reno asking about, what about the over on TCU? Do you have any opinion on the total in the first game we talked about, Joe?
Yeah, I would only go to the over in that ball game because if SMU is to keep that game close, they're going to have to attack TCU secondary and vice versa. TCU is going to have to attack SMU secondary that allowed 461 passing yards to Mason Fine and North Texas. So all signs point to the over. I can't take an under in a Big 12 game.
Yeah, I think there is some weather issues. That's the one thing I would be concerned about, and I think that's why the market has moved a little bit towards the under. But looks like we're all set on YouTube. Send out a tweet here as well. Get some people in the chat box. Let's hit the chat box a little bit more. I like Clemson, the offense. Texas A&M runs. Texas A&M is the side from Sushi. Okay. Don't disrespect the SEC. Joe, that's kind of an interesting tidbit here from Gas Station in the chat box. Do you bet on conferences as a whole in college football?
No, I look at each individual team, and the one thing I could tell you about Texas A&M from a physicality perspective, even though they have new defensive coordinator Mike Elko, their physicality on the defensive side of the ball, especially in run support over the last couple of years, does not step up like some of the better teams in the SEC West, like Alabama, LSU, and Auburn in terms of a physicality. Now, they might be there by the end of the year, but they have to show me that first. I didn't see it week number 1, and they're going to be going up against an experienced offense and defensive lines. And Clemson is eerily similar to Alabama in terms of the type of talent that they recruit on the defensive line. So all signs point to Clemson in this ballgame for me.
Okay. And laying doubles on the road, having to pretty much win by 2 touchdowns in an SEC West atmosphere, home of the 12th man. I believe it's a night game. Not getting you off that side, huh?
No, I mean, here's the thing. Look at the teams that Clemson beat last year on the road or on a neutral field site. Louisville, Virginia Tech, NC State, South Carolina, Miami on a neutral field. They beat those teams by 21.2 points per game. I mean, they are a superior top 5 team. It steps up in big time. So I'm not bucking Dabo Swinney and the crew this coming Saturday.
Okay. Fair enough. And Larry, producers on the back end saying BMOC is either with us or not. BMOC, are you here?
I'm here. How are you
take
guys?
that? Oh, you're here. There he is. BMOC, welcome in. Some internet issues up there in Philadelphia.
You guys hear me all right?
How you doing?
Yeah.
You guys hear me all right? All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm doing well, Drew. I had some internet issues. It's 100 degrees. I think the internet's being melting or something. I don't know. I'm good, though. Joe, you looking good as ever. How are you, pal?
I'm doing well, big man. How are you, my friend?
Oh, doing good. Always great to hear from you two on a Thursday.
Hey, I think you guys are in the same city right now.
I don't think. Joe's in Jersey. I came home today, so I'm at home now.
Oh, okay. I thought you would both be in Atlantic City. Joe, you're in Atlantic City, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I was there for like 2 weeks. I just came home.
Oh, okay. Well, BMOC, we got to get you caught up on TCU SMU real quick. Any opinion betting it?
Yeah, this total's come down significantly, and I think there's a lot of overreaction to the weather in this game. I think it's important to note, Drew, that there's not going to be any monsoon in Dallas tomorrow night. I mean, it's scattered. It's 30, 40% chance of rain. I think a lot of people are being scared off. I think a lot of people hear hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico and think that Dallas is going to be affected by this. We might see a little rain. I don't think it's going to be anything to affect this game. I think Joe made some good points on what he discussed. I mean, you got to keep in mind as well, big sandwich game here for TCU. I know it's an in-city rival, but SMU is a team that generally aren't very good. TCU should be able to move the ball. Sean Robinson looked very good last week, albeit against Southern University. I still think they should be able to move the ball. Joe is probably no stranger to the fact, and he knows that Sonny Dykes can't coach as wet of a fucking paper bag on defense. We know all he cares about is the offensive side. I think he can move the ball. Ben Hicks is a decent player. They have some decent receivers that can move the ball down the field. I would imagine this is a higher scoring game. I think maybe TCU will win big, but I don't think they win by 23, 24 points. I think this could be a backdoor situation, something like that. It's a tough game, Drew, but all I'm going to say is make sure you don't get scared off. I don't know that it's going to be a monsoon this entire game. This numbers come down way too much.
Yeah, it's always tough to tell with weather. You got to stay right on it. Try to find a camera on campus, something like that. Big man, to catch you up real quick, anything on Clemson, Texas A&M?
It's a tough game. I'm a little bit higher on A&M, I think, than others, but and we do make the points, and I saw some of the chat making the points that Jimbo Fisher could be a bit overrated. I mean, if I can remember correctly, he didn't do a particularly great job against Clemson when he was at Florida State. But, Mond, I wonder about, can they run the ball? I mean, they were able to move the ball last week on the ground, but Trevion Williams is going to have a lot different of experience this week. You have one of the best defensive lines you've ever seen. I don't have a big feel in this game. I'll kind of let Joe had at it with that one. This isn't a game that I'm going to get involved with. I think that the number's kind of right where I think it'd be. It's a pass for me.
Okay. And then last one to catch you up, Notre Dame, Ball State in the Indiana in-state rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a low spot for Notre Dame. I mean, obviously come off that emotional win last week, but a game that they basically destroyed Michigan really every level. But I think Michigan, I don't think they were prepared to play in that game. I'm sure Joe would agree on that. Bad penalties. The play calling was brutal. Ball State is a team that obviously wants to give the ball to a guy named James Gilbert. If we saw last week, we saw Michigan couldn't move the ball at all on the ground. I think they had under 60 yards rushing. Riley Neal's a nice player. They might be able to score 10, 13 points in this game, but Notre Dame looks like a freight train right now. They looked like a freight train last week. Wimbush is able to get out on the outside. He's going to be quicker, faster, stronger than everyone on Ball State. Ball State should, I would think they get crushed in this game. I think just like a 45-10, 48-10 type of game. I wouldn't be, it could be a low spot, but Notre Dame seems to be pretty focused right now as we start the season out.
Yeah, the Ball State was kind of an off-season darling. It seemed like a lot of people were betting their season win total over with Riley Neal being injured and coming back, and he is a pretty good ball player. But for a MAC school to go up against Notre Dame, they're going to be up against it. I'm with you. I think they're in a really tough spot right here. So it looks like I believe we all kind of agree on that one. What else do you guys want to hit on? 387. I think we got USC Stanford here, pulling up SBR odds. Yeah, USC Stanford. In the Pac-12.
Yeah.
56.5 the total. Looks like Stanford laying 6 at home. Could be a possible preview if Stanford can kind of get over Washington there. To a preview of the Pac-12 championship game. But Joe, we'll get right to you. USC Stanford. Any opinion?
Yeah, this is one of my best bets for the weekend, Drew. I really like USC with the points. I like USC on the money line. I think they're the superior team in this matchup. They've won 4 of the last 7 over Stanford and won those 4 games by 7 points per game. Stanford won their 3 games by 16 points per game. But you look at both games last year, USC dominated, put up over 600 yards of total offense with Sam Darnold in the Coliseum. They won that matchup 42-28, and then they won the Pac-12 championship 31-28. But I look at last week with Bryce Love, that Stanford offense only rushed for 50 yards in that matchup against San Diego State. Look for Stephen Carr to break out. JT Daniels is the unknown. He completed 22 of 35 passes, 283 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. USC wins by 10 to 13 points in this ball game.
Liking USC outright. Big man, you agree with him?
I do agree with him. I think the 6 points are absolutely beautiful here. I'm not sure why this number is where it is. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know about Joe, but I thought San Diego State was surely the right side last week. I thought they played well. I thought defensively they were on point. They just had some trouble with one player in their secondary. He wasn't able to get off the field and shut down Arcega-Whiteside. But yeah, listen, I like USC. JT Daniels look pretty good. They're going to sell and try to stop Bryce Love. I don't know that, with the athleticism USC have in the secondary, I don't know that Stanford will be able to beat them, as Joe would say, vertically. I think it's a higher scoring game. I think the game will go over, but I think anytime I can get 6 points with USC, I'm going to look to take it. A pride thing. This is a California thing. This is a West Coast thing. It's a big game. I don't see Stanford 6 points better. They don't have that pass rusher like they've had in years past. It's more of a committee kind of thing. They don't have that shutdown secondary that they've had. And look, to be honest, I think that defense, particularly the line, will keep Bryce Love in check. It's about keeping him in check. You just don't want him to go off for 200 yards. I think the 6 points is valuable. I'm not as optimistic as a 10-point win, but I'm willing to take the points and say they can win this game.
Okay, and Joe, to come back at you, I mean, USC was sort of in a dogfight there with the Mountain West team just last week. Young quarterback. What's making you think that they can rebound to kind of win this by 10 points?
Well, I mean, first of all, this is the Pac-12 champions. Let's not forget that, this was the superior team within the Pac-12 last year. They were 9-1 against Pac-12 opponents and won those 9 games by 13.7 points per game. They also were tied with Clemson guys last year with 46 total sacks. So this is a dominant front 7, even though they didn't step up in game number 1. I thought you saw a vanilla type of game plan. Look for Stephen Carr in the short to intermediate passing game this week. To me, that's the difference. They kept him limited duty, 9 carries, 54 yards. I think he outshines Bryce Love in this ball game in Palo Alto.
Okay, Joe, and big man, to you, kind of going up against a Mountain West team, and and being in a dogfight up until the fourth quarter, really. And Joe brings up last year, being the superior team, but they also had a first round draft pick in Sam Darnold. What do you think about quarterback play from the Trojans, and will they be able to bounce back?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, I obviously think a lot of it has to do with like what Joe said. It's a Pac-12 game. This is a little different. UNLV's better than people think. I mean, they have a good quarterback. They're well coached, and let's be honest, they still lost by what 22 points. They didn't cover the number, but USC, but they were comfortably ahead the entire game for the most part. Listen, for me, it's a lot of just about who the game's against, where it is, the magnitude of the game. It's a huge game. Daniels was good enough. I think he'll only get better as we go. We know he was a very good a high school quarterback, as many of these kids are. He comes in with a lot of, kind of optimism. I don't know that it'll be that big because I don't know that I really trust Stanford's quarterback either. I mean, he's a good player. He's not a great player. They want to kind of lead on the run anyway. So I think it'll be a game where as long as Daniels doesn't turn the ball over 3 or 4 times, they'll be fine. Defensively, they'll be right there. Athletically, I think they'll be fine.
And
Okay.
keep in
Good
mind,
stuff,
Drew,
guys.
keep in
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
keep in mind, Stanford's secondary last year allowed 5 opponents to pass for over 300 yards. They were 1-4 in those games. That's going to be the game plan for USC. Attack Stanford over the top early and often, jump up early and force KJ Costello to come from behind. That's how you beat Stanford.
That's true. If they get ahead, it's like a triple option team. You don't want to go that route on them. Guys, we'll hit the chat box a little bit. We got a home opener. Teams love to run up the score and play to the crowd. Do you guys think there's anything in that, as far as handicapping a home opener and coaches wanting to pour it on the other side? Big man.
Well, look, I think every home game's important. I don't know if a home opener matters a ton. I mean, playing up to the crowd, yeah, I mean, you're going to get more calls. I mean, that's obviously one thing. I think you being at home is obviously huge for that. But I don't think, for me, I don't think like they try to do extra things because they're at home or anything. I think, it's obviously helpful being at home and, you know, it works. But I think it's more or less an officiating kind of thing and just kind of being in your own bed. I don't know that it's something that a coach is going to do something more to applaud the crowd. They're trying to go in there and win a football game, not worry about if the crowd's happy or not. At least for me.
Joe, do you have any opinion on that?
I think it was more important back in the day when it was about style points, Drew. With the AP poll and really breaking it down that way. I don't think that's the case anymore in terms of teams just want to get healthy. If it was a top 10 opponent, maybe, but if they're beating up on lesser competition, it's more about getting younger players involved. Running up the score isn't as important unless it's a top 10, top 15 opponent.
One thing I've noticed in college football totals betting, especially, is if I'm betting an over with a heavily favored team, like a high offense, maybe like an Oregon type offense, and they're on the road, I'm a little more hesitant to bet that over, because if they get out to a big lead, it's almost like they're a little bit more eager just to get out of town. Whereas if they're at home, they'll put on the gas pedal a little bit more. Do you think there's anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're at home, you want to score for your fan base and you want to be able to win the game in dramatic fashion. So I think there's somewhat of a degree to that type of methodology. But at the end of the day, if you're talking about top 10 teams and they have bigger games on deck, like TCU faces Ohio State, in those type of situations, it's more about getting healthy so that you can make the college football playoff, because those top 10 games are what matters more when these rankings come out.
Okay. And Big Man, anything on that for you?
No, I agree with Joe considerably. A lot of these stuff, I mean, for me, it just doesn't really mean a ton. I mean, being at home's great. I mean, obviously, I'd much rather be home than away because A, I'm going to get calls, and B, I'm sleeping in my own bed. It's more of a routine, and it's something that I'm comfortable with. But I really don't know that. I don't think coaches play up for. I think, like Joe said, the style points and stuff maybe, and a few years ago it might mattered more. But yeah, I don't really care much other than that about home field advantage.
We got Doug's in the chat box saying, I think college players are more affected by the crowd. I'd agree with him. And I'd also say, and especially in major college football atmospheres, the good ones, it's also louder in a lot of cases than an NFL team. You got the band, things like that. So as far as getting plays in, Joe, I see you nodding your head. You agree?
Yeah, well, I mean, look at Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M has one of the highest attendances in sports at over 100,000 fans. You look at Giant Stadium as a whole, they only have 77,000 fans in East Rutherford. So you're talking about 30,000 more fans at the collegiate level in College Station this weekend than an NFL stadium. So, of course, these kids are 18, 19, and 20 years old, some making their first career start. So, of course, they're going to be affected. And technically, it's not a job, right? They're student athletes for the most part. So even though we might not disagree on that or disagree or agree, it is a fact that there are 18 and 19-year-old kids playing football as well as going to school.
Okay. Good stuff, guys. And hitting the chat box here, love it. One of my favorite names in the chat box, Gas Station Sushi, saying Helton will be lucky if he doesn't get fired by Thanksgiving. So he's coming after you guys as far as the Trojans play.
That's fine. I'll just say this about Stanford, guys. They lost 5 games all on the road or on a neutral field site last year for the first time since 2014. And more importantly, they lost 5 games for the first time since 2014. So, again, I mean, I know David Shaw is a fantastic coach, but I think they're going the other way in terms of where they're going in the conference. And I think USC has the speed. They've recruited top 10 talent there. Now, can Clay Helton coach them up? It reminds me of 1998 with T. Martin in Tennessee.
I agree with you.
Yeah, listen, he's not getting fired. There's zero basis to think he would get fired. He's won 28 games in 4 years. He won the Pac-12 in 2017. He's won bowl games 2 out of 4 years. What would be the basis to fire Clay Helton? I mean, look, I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but he's coached and done a nice job there. I'm not sure what would be the basis overall to fire him. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And I also think USC is one of these programs where you don't need the big, splashy, sexy name.
Right.
You know, USC is going to kind of sell itself. So you need more of the guy that's going to build up the players. I don't know.
Sure.
That's just what I think is better for USC.
You're 100% right.
Guys, yeah, hit in the chat box. Please let us know what else you want us to hit on. We got 2 more games that we're supposed to hit as far as the show goes, which is next up, Memphis and Navy. 339-340. Memphis on the road at Navy, laying 7, 68.5 total. Big man, I know you like this game. Where do you want to go with Memphis Navy?
Yeah, I mean, Naval Academy back home here in their home opener against Memphis, a tough game. I mean, you just made a 9,600-mile round trip. That's the longest any program will make this year in NCAA. This is a horrendous defense. Joe knows that. Joe will agree there. This team can't stop anyone. Hawaii absolutely carved them up, and I don't expect Brady White and Memphis to do anything different. You attack Navy. They can't stop anybody. And you look at the offense. This offense shouldn't have any trouble moving the ball. I mean, over the last few years, Memphis has struggled to get stops against Navy. I mean, you give up 318 rushing yards last year. You give up 447 yards the game before. They scored 42 points the first 2 years ago, 30 last year, or 27 last year. They did a bit better job last year against this rushing attack. But, I mean, why is this number coming down? I mean, does this make any sense? I mean, Navy can't stop anybody. I'm not sure Memphis can stop Navy. That's a tough offense to prepare for, especially in the second week. I know you had Mercer in the first game, and you've probably been looking at them. But, I mean, Navy has never really not had success against Memphis. They're at home here. They might be a little tired, but I think that's going to affect them on the defensive level. I lean Memphis laying points, but I like the over more.
Okay. And Joe, do you on Memphis and Navy?
No, I'm bucket big man here. I like Navy in this matchup. They've won 2 of the last 3. They lost this ball game 30-27 last year. That was with Riley Ferguson. The triple option, to me, I'm not sold on Memphis's ability to stop the run. I think the over looks good here, but I'm not sold on Brady White. So for me, I know the cross-country trip. They are in the Naval Academy. So if anybody's disciplined for this, it will be them. To me, it comes down to Memphis's ability to stop the run, and that's why I like Navy. I'll take the points in this ball game.
Hey, Drew, I want to make it clear. The over is my play, and Joe makes a great point about the Naval Academy being prepared for this. I mean, if anyone's prepared for a 10,000-mile journey, it's those cadets, and we all know Niumatalolo is a hell of a coach. The over is more of the player for me. I'm not going to say I have a play on the side or we'll make a play on the side. It's really just a lean for me. The over is the best play. This is like a 45, 35 type of game to me.
And big man, you brought up, you didn't know why it was moving down. I agree with you. I like the over. I was looking for reasons as well. I came up with two. One is I think there's like 12 to 14 mile an hour winds. That's not going to keep me off of it, but I'm just thinking of reasons. The other is Memphis had an FCS opponent week 1. So there is not a chance, they likely did prepare for the triple option in the off season coming up to this, getting ready for Navy. So thinking of ways of why that number might be coming down.
Yeah, I mean, again, this has been a team that hasn't been able to stop the triple option before. So, I mean, it's so difficult to stop it. You really just try to contain it by, limiting gaps and spacing and things like that. But, Navy's got a quick offense. Malcolm Perry's a good quarterback. And when they get down within the 5, they're going to bring AB in to just kind of power back his way in. I don't really know that it matters. I mean, they haven't been able to stop it before. And that's, a problem here.
All right, guys, we got one more game and we'll hit the chat box to close it out. So let us know what you want us to hit on to close out the show. This is the somewhat degenerate special. We'll hit on it again. 397-398 Rice, Hawaii. We got 71 or 71.5. Make sure to shop around if you're looking to bet this total because it's all over the place on SBR odds. 17 across the board. The Rainbow Warriors are laying at home. Joe, we'll start off with you. Any opinion, Rice versus Hawaii?
Yeah, I like Hawaii here. They're the hot team. I backed them in back-to-back weeks. Love what Cole McDonald is doing in terms of his ability to throw over the top of Rice's secondary. I'm not sold on Rice's ability to go toe-to-toe with Hawaii in this matchup. They can't stretch defenses vertically. They're going to have to run the football, and I like Hawaii to dominate this game. I think they win this game by 28 points or more.
I like Hawaii too. Big man, what about you?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is this is a much different situation for Hawaii than the first two. They're an underdog in the first two. Now they're a double-digit, almost 20-point favorite in the third game. The problem is Rice is no different than their first two opponents. Rice can't stop anybody, and Hawaii will attack them down the field. Cole McDonald has thrown for almost 900 yards in 2 games. He's been absolutely terrific. The game plan is go heavy, go hard, and go fast for Hawaii. Rice isn't going to stop that. This would be something I'd keep in mind going forward. Hawaii will be overvalued going into the big or the Mountain West season. I don't know how they'll perform against a good defense. You wonder about that because they've got no pushback with these first 3. Am I willing to lay 17? No, but I am willing to go with that. There'll be points. I thought Rice was Joe, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. I thought they were pretty good against Houston. I know they kind of waned off in the second half, but they tested Houston, a pretty good run defense. They were able to move the ball down the field. Tyner was okay. They even brought in the other quarterback as well. I think they can at least move the ball. Hawaii's never been a team that concentrates a ton on defense. I think they can get to, let's say, 20 points here, but this could be very well 52-20. I'd like to hear Joe what he thinks about Rice. I mean, I thought offensively they were pretty good.
Yeah, I was asked about that Rice game against Houston. The fact that they were a home underdog last week, I liked them. I thought they would play well with the long time off in preparation. But I think the one thing that you have to keep an eye out on, they're going to Hawaii, number one. It's a road trip. And then the physicality of the 4 quarters, that Ed Oliver pounding for 4 quarters from the offensive line. How does that hold up on the road now with the trip? I mean, again, I was impressed with their ability to move the football on Houston. I'm not sold on Major Applewhite in a big spot anyway, but that was a very solid effort for a week 1 matchup against a quality opponent in the Cougars. Again, they showed an ability from a defensive perspective to run sideline to sideline early, but how does that game affect them as they go on the road to Hawaii would be the one concern, because now I think Hawaii's faster than Houston on the perimeter from an offensive perspective. How does that make their defense fair in this ball game? That's the one concern.
Good stuff breaking down this game, guys. It will be the late night game from Hawaii, 12 midnight Eastern kick. We'll hit the chat box here to close it out. Guan Wait saying, anyone taking Kennesaw State tonight? Big man, I know you know something about FCS. You got anything
No.
on tonight's game?
Yeah, I mean, Kennesaw State's a team that loves to run the football. Brian Bohannon loves to put the ball on the ground. Tennessee Tech's actually a team I do believe, and I want to say I'm trying to remember who it is. I mean, obviously with so many teams, you have to kind of try to keep abreast of what's going on. But I want to say they have a quarterback. I'm trying to remember who it is. If I can remember, I'll bring it up. It was a quarterback that played at the FBS level, and he transferred out to Tennessee Tech. But this is a lot of points. Tennessee Tech's a pretty decent team. They are a team that can kind of hang in games. Over their last 10 defeats, 5 have been decided by 14 points or less. They are a team that can hang around. And with Kennesaw State's kind of keeping the ball on the ground, I don't know if it's a higher scoring game either. If you're getting, which the numbers right now, what do you have on a number, Drew?
I'm showing 5 dimes with 21, but
Yeah,
sometimes it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, I'm looking at, again, this is an added game. Some books have different numbers. If you're getting above 3 touchdowns, I'd almost want to say I'd lean towards the Golden Eagles here. But Kennesaw State's very good. They're going to keep the ball on the ground. Chandler Burks is a pretty solid quarterback when he has to throw the ball. Yeah, it's a tough one. It might be too many points to lay with Kennesaw. I'd probably lean with the Golden Eagles here.
Okay. And Joe, you were saying you don't have any opinion?
Not tonight, no.
Okay, no, I don't either. And I mean, you can see if you can find something on the game like Big Man does from time to time. Shout out to him for the North Carolina AT&T cash that he had. But you can get some value, and the minus 120 might be worth it. As you can see, the sports books are kind of slow to the trigger. Yeah, go ahead, Big Man.
Keep in mind, I mean, there's a couple more FCS games this week, and I know Joe is well aware of Kent State. They're getting Howard this week, and this Bison team has had a little kind of optimism whenever they play a Division I team. They were really in the game last week against Frank Solich's Ohio team. Last year, Kent State was a 21.5-point favorite in this game. I'd imagine it's that or more this year. Howard might be another live dog in this game against a Division I opponent. They love playing these type of teams. That might be one I'm going to take a look at here if you can get the right number. There's some other ones, obviously, as well that we'll take a look out for when we get lines for them.
And is Cam Newton's little brother still the quarterback for Howard?
I believe he is.
Good for him. All right, guys, we'll hit this, see if there's anything else. Anybody else got any pick 'em? Anybody got a Big Man? Philadelphia, Atlanta tonight, real quickly. Play for it.
Yeah, Eagles are a pick 'em now. It's quite amazing, really, what we've seen with this line movement. I mean, the whole world is taking the Atlanta Falcons, and look, there's a lot of reasons to take Atlanta. I mean, obviously, they're in revenge here. They're going on the road back to where they lost in the playoffs. The question is, can they score the football in the red zone? They weren't good at that last year. At any rate, Eagles defensively are going to be very good. Everyone's healthy other than Nigel Bradham. He's suspended. This should be a low-scoring game. But it's low enough at a total where 27-20 is a loser. I think the Eagles find a way. This is what they do. They seem to play well with their backs against the wall. It's can Nick Foles make the right reads? He didn't look particularly good in the preseason doing that, but again, he had no virtual game plan. There was no really high-level players in the game that he was getting the ball to. The offensive line didn't have Jason Peters. I want to say with the banner raising, with the crowd, with the atmosphere, I think at this number, it's hard to not take the Eagles. Is it a gigantic play that I'm going to make? No. But I think they find a way here. I'm just not confident enough in the Falcons' defense and the Falcons' ability to score in the red zone. They've made it difficult. This could come down to kickers, Drew. I want Jake Elliott. Eagles 20, Falcons 17.
Hey, Joe, real quick to you. Do you agree with Big Man in his Eagles shirt, betting on the Eagles?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the Eagles here. Again, I'm not bucking the Super Bowl champions. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Philadelphia. But before we go, I'll give out 2 picks for the weekend. I like Penn State over Pittsburgh. I like Penn State over Pittsburgh minus the 8.5. I like Northern Illinois plus the 11 over Utah. I think they bounce back after a dismal start in Iowa, 33-7. Look for them to run the football and keep Tyler Huntley and that Utah offense in check, and expect Penn State to challenge that Pittsburgh secondary that allowed Albany quarterback Vincent Testaverde to pass for 263 yards last week in that 33-7 win. Look for McSorley to break out for over 300 in a dominating win in Heinz Field by 17 or more this coming weekend.
Joe, I got to come back to you. Utah, it's now the highest number is 10.5 now. But hold on a second here. You don't think Utah runs away with this? What exactly do you like about Northern Illinois?
I like the fact that Northern Illinois had a very lackluster effort against Iowa. They got beat up on the physicality on the offensive and defensive lines. That used to be the MO of Utah 2 years ago. Now they spread it open. They're going to open it up more of a 5-wide type of attack. To me, that benefits Sutton Smith in that defensive front seven. The reason why they lost last week is I think a lot of people don't realize how good Iowa is on the offensive and defensive lines. A lot of people were selling them short. They only lost 5 games last year by 9.8 points per game. Look for Northern to bounce back. They're at home. They step up in a big way and have played Power 5 opponents very tough. But now this is a Pac-12 opponent. And from a physicality perspective, I think Northern matches up very well.
All right, fair enough. And Big Man, anything to you in conclusion?
I got to hop, guys. I got to hop.
Yeah.
I got another interview.
Go for it, Joe. Thanks for your time. Big Man, anything for you as we shut this down?
Joe's the man. I love Joe.
He's all over the place.
Just to wrap it up, we talked Kent State Howard. Kalen Newton last week, Drew, your boy, 532 yards against Ohio. 532. This Kent State team, Drew, they want to go up tempo. Woody Barrett comes over from Auburn, their new quarterback. They want to go quick. This could be a nice over if I can get the right number here. If I'm getting an over around 60-ish, I'm looking over. This Howard team loves to move the football. If they can move the ball in Ohio, they'll move the ball in Kent State. This could be a real nice over spot when these numbers come out. Kalen Newton can move the football.
Big Man, Barrett's at Kent State, right?
He is. Woody Barrett is at Kent State, yep.
Okay, yeah. I remember that from the offseason. Damn, I forgot about that. Okay, could be definitely a bet on an over opportunity with them running so much tempo. But yeah, man, anything you want to throw out before we shut this down? That's it.
Yeah, I'm definitely one other thing. I'm going to have my eye on Temple this week. I think one thing about week 2, Drew, is we either overvalue or undervalue a team. People are not going to be interested in Temple this week after their loss to Villanova. Keep in mind, Villanova has given Temple problems. Doesn't matter what season it is, that football team always plays well against the Owls. They've handled us in sports the last couple of years, and football has been the same. They were very competitive. They finally get a win last week. I thought Temple played pretty well. They had some bad picks. Frank Newtow took the blame for it. I think they come out with a better effort this week against Buffalo. They got to get the run game going. Buffalo is a team, Drew, that over the years has really struggled on the road. It's just something under, whether it's Lance Leopold or whoever, they have struggled on the road. It's just kind of something where, maybe, in games where they're up at, their stadium in the winter, it's a good atmosphere, but they've failed to cover an 8 of 12 on the road. They've only won 2 over their last 12 road games overall. I'm going to look for Tempo to have a bigger and better concerted effort this week. I think Newtow rights his wrongs. They're a good football team. I think they get back on track. If I'm laying 5 here, I don't hate that. I don't want to lay 10 points at Temple, but if ever I'm getting under a touchdown, I think at home they're worth a look.
All right, Big Man, great stuff. We got Big Ron in the chat box saying TCU game tomorrow night. We went over that. That was the first game, Big Ron. So when this is over, it will be up on the YouTube page. You can see the analysis. I believe Joe Lisi liked actually SMU in the points, and Big Man, you like the over, right?
I lean that way. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to say too much, but yes, I do. I do like the over in that game.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have much on it. I haven't bet it personally for tomorrow night. But for Joe Lisi, big man on campus, follow Joe Lisi at Go for the Two, big man on campus at Jeff Nadeau on Twitter. I'm Drew Martin. We will be back on Monday for another college football episode of the Betting Hour. This is the student section. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.